Hello viewers and welcome to my new video. Today's video is a sequel to my last video that I did, which talked about one of the best gigs that I have ever played. So in that video I promised that I would do another one about what equipment to take, or at least what equipment I took when I went touring, and the mode of transportation to get to the actual place was a plane. So let's get down to it. So obviously when you get on a plane and you don't have a vehicle like a van, for example, to go on tour in, that presents certain challenges. So obviously all the airlines have a limited amount of space and what, so you have like weight limitations, and also you have certain dimensions of the luggage that you can take with you. So you need to consider all these factors when you want to take musical equipment with you onto the plane. So we could start with actually saying, if you are smart enough and you can actually organize it really well, you could actually go with no equipment or very, very, very little equipment whatsoever. If you could, for example, borrow a guitar or any musical instrument from another band, say when you arrive at the place, you could borrow an amp, you could borrow the entire drum kit, you could borrow the cymbals, everything really. But obviously that could become a bit of a hassle, especially if you are playing quite a few dates, and obviously you'd have to make those arrangements with each individual promoter or a band in each place that you're playing. And obviously also what you need to think about is how far are you willing to compromise in terms of not using your own equipment. Some people are very used to using their own guitars or whatever, so you need to think about these things and take them all into consideration. So in my case, what I really didn't want to compromise on, first of all, was my guitar. So I was adamant that I would take my guitar with me, because I'm used to it. It was in a different tuning that many of the bands played in. So the first thing, wherever you take your guitar, what I would really recommend is to have a hard case, a decent hard case, and not a soft case, because obviously the moment you use a soft case, your guitar is actually exposed to a lot of getting hit and getting dents in it and that kind of stuff. So I've actually got one here with me. So this is the one that I actually took with me on the tour in Poland. It's a good solid case, but what's really good about this particular case is that it's actually as small as it can be in terms of its dimensions. So it just fits the guitar inside. And that's it. So I'm just gonna put that away. And what's really good about cases like these, that they usually have like a small compartment that sort of opens up inside, so you can actually fit cables inside, and perhaps some other little bits that you also are taking with you. So the next thing that is important is your tone. So obviously part of your tone comes from the guitar, and the other part is your amp. All right, so how much are you willing to sacrifice or compromise when it comes to performing abroad, for example? Okay, there are different options, and actually when I was planning for this, at the time all I had was a big PV6505 amplifier head, which basically weighs a ton, and it's quite large as well. So if I wanted to take it with me and put it in my luggage, say in my bag, then to be honest, that would probably take up most of the weight that is actually allowed to take with you onto the plane. So I had to figure out what else I could do. So I actually had a look at various options at the time, and there are various small amps on the market. Actually, this stuff by Orange, for example. There used to be an amp called Tiny Terror, and I think they have something like Dark Terror. The Vox actually produce amps that actually can go up to, I think, 50 watts of power actually, and they're quite small. And I also looked at something that's called PV Piranha 6505, which is supposed to be reproducing the same tone that the big amp 6505 can give you. And to be honest, when I looked at those options, I think there were limitations with those, especially when the smaller the gear is, the less options you essentially get. So for example, that Piranha amp only has one sort of tone knob, so there's no EQ, there's no bass, mid or treble sort of separated, you know. So it's only a high gain amp. So if all you're going for is that sort of high gain distorted sound, that might be great. But if you are looking at any nuances in your tone, that perhaps you might want to go for something else. And also, I'm a big fan of valve amps. So again, some of these smaller amps had valves in them, but again, there was a compromise sometimes on the tone and how much EQ you could get out of them. And you know, at the same time, not all of them had valves in them, and you know, and some of them were actually not as powerful. So again, that Piranha, for example, only goes to 20 watts, I think, as maximum, and it's not actually advertised as a gigging amp. It's more like a sort of practice amp. So anyway, I was a little bit worried about taking such a thing with me, so whether it was going to be powerful enough for a big stage, for example. So after doing some research and looking at various amps, I actually found this one. I'm just going to show it to you now. So I found this beauty, and this is Hughes&Kettner Grandmeister Deluxe 40. All right, so 40 stands for 40 watts. Actually, this is a head that has this all valve amp basically, and this is, I believe, to be the smallest all valve amp that you can get on the market. And obviously it's got all the EQ, it's got things like presence, resonance, reverb, you know, delay, and things like that. So you can actually dial in your sound as much as you like, and this particular amp sounds amazing as well. So the amp, what's really cool about it, it comes with a bag like this. So it almost looks like a sports bag, you know, if you were going to play tennis or something like that, you know. But essentially, the amp itself, I'm just going to demonstrate this. It goes in there, like this, and actually, you know, you can actually take it onto your shoulder like that, you know, and that can actually become your hand luggage, which is exactly how I took it on the plane. And this actually weighs 14 kilograms, so it's not you know, it's not the lightest item, but it actually is within the limits of your hand luggage, or at least it was when I was on my flight. So that was fantastic. A funny story about this though, because of the way this looks, every time it goes through a security scanner at the airport security, you know, I was basically stopped every single time. So when I was at Liverpool airport, I was asked to actually remove this from the bag and showed it to them basically, so they could actually check what it was. But actually they loved it at Liverpool airport. They were like, oh, what is that, is that a guitar amp? Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, so that's a bit of a story about that. But other than that, I didn't have any problems with it or anything. Anyway, the amp works fantastically and it really served me very well. At some point, I'm going to do a proper review actually of this amp, because I think it's really worth it. So you can actually learn about all its features. Okay, so this was my hand luggage, and then what did I take with me? Because I also had my main luggage that went into the luggage compartment on the plane. So what did I take in terms of gear? Well, only a couple of cables really, but at the time I was actually using some pedals. So I had a pedal board, and actually I used to have this case. This was my pedal board case, and as you can see, it's actually quite large in size. So again, when taking something onto the plane, you've got to think about the size. So what I decided to do, I removed the actual pedals from the case, and actually sort of lessened the amount of pedals that I decided to take with me. So I'm just going to explain to you what I took. Pedal number 1 is a tuner. So this is a tuner that I've been using for some time now. Really happy with it. This is by a company called Stag. So a tuner. The next pedal was the Maxon OD808 overdrive pedal, which actually this pedal I used to use this in front of my PV amp, but I also use this with this Hughes&Kettner, but today I've actually abandoned that because I actually think that the Hughes&Kettner itself has enough overdrive, so you don't need an overdrive pedal with it, but I will explain that in a separate video. And the third pedal which I took was a noise gate. Actually that's a noise suppressor NS2 by Boss. Alright, so these are the 3 pedals that I took with me, so into the main luggage. And to be honest, the way I packed this, because I also was taking merch with me, so a lot of t-shirts and things like that. So what's a really good tip, I think, is always try and wrap any hardware, if you have any gear that could potentially get hit or damaged, or because all these cases, when they sort of get them onto the plane, they basically throw them, and they don't treat them gently. So you need to think about, if you put anything into your main luggage, make sure that it's protected. So wrapping things in your clothing items, your t-shirts or whatever that might be, is a really good tip. Which is exactly the same what I did with CDs actually, because also we had CDs with us on that tour. So again, wrap them up in t-shirts, so they were basically safe inside the main luggage compartment. So essentially, those are the main things that I took. The guitar itself, I actually took with me on the board of the plane. Because it was actually relatively cheap to get it, because otherwise you'd have to pay to get it into the luggage compartment. You have to pay there's a set fee, but actually paying for it as a seat on a plane, I think it was actually probably even cheaper at the time. So I did that, obviously ensuring that the guitar was with me and safe. So I hope that you are going to take something from this video if you are going to be touring and actually flying over to the place where you're gonna be touring in. And please subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.